All right, today we got Kristi Uribes talking about The Record, nominated by James Cadillia, and really glad to have you on the show. Thank you, Kristi. How's it
Thank you
going?
so much. Oh, it's so great. Thank you.
All right. Kristi, is there anything you'd like to say about The Record or your own background before we get into the three questions on Play It Forward?
Yeah, I mean, I can give a little backstory about how it came to be, which was essentially it really started with a story from my grandfather. It's something I wanted to tell for a really long time. I submitted to a inclusion fellowship through the Los Angeles Latino International Film Festival, which was also sponsored by Netflix. So I was lucky enough to be one of the fellows. They chose my project. They gave us a little bit of funding, which was fantastic. And it's because of them that the film was able to be made in the first place. As everyone knows, funding is really hard to find. So it was a gift. So through this inclusion fellowship, the short was made last spring. And so here I am with you in a
Cool,
film.
cool. Congrats.
Thank you.
So the first question to Play It Forward is really, diving into the heart of the inspiration. Like, where did this film idea come from? You said from your grandfather, but what
Yeah.
in you resonated with this story? So from that like feeling perspective, what was it, the kernel?
Yeah. For me, it was definitely one of those sort of like off the cuff stories. My grandfather said, "Oh yeah, I grew up in the depression in the countryside, and oh yeah, my brother was sick and I'd have to stay up all night and hand crank a phonograph for him because the music was the only thing that made him feel better." And it was just kind of casually mentioned in that image of a little boy like hand cranking a phonograph like all night with the pressure of like that's the thing that's going to make your brother feel better. That felt like, oh, this is a fairy tale. This is Rumpelstiltskin. This is like Jack and the Beanstalk. This is like every other fairy tale that we've heard of, like someone really committing to, sacrifice a bit of themselves to help someone they love. And that absolutely resonated to me. So I thought, okay, great. Well, let's turn my grandpa's story into an actual fairy tale. If that was a fairy tale, what would happen? And of course, like something magical would happen. So
Mm-hmm. Cool.
hence the magical realism in this film.
Cool. And that's kind of takes us to the next question is, thematically, it's like, what is the message of the story from your perspective as a viewer now?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the biggest kernel, the biggest through line was the idea of generational trauma and the cyclical nature of that. The sickness that this brother has is from like an immense grief of the loss of his mom, and like taking that to a really dark place, and like the way that it can kind of trap other people into that cycle, like literally turning a phonograph and like turning being stuck in a loop of having to help someone with their trauma, and how that you get swept up in it as well. So to me, that was the biggest theme that I tried to keep in mind for this film was was the idea of the loss of a mom, the loss also of like our cultural knowledge, the loss. Um she was Yaqui, which is from a tribe in Arizona and Mexico. So like that, her loss not only was the loss of a mother, but loss of cultural knowledge. So basically how we deal with that is to me is the biggest theme of this film.
Mhm. So, I mean, the record idea, you're stuck in the same record, even that expression, playing the same record over and over again. The two boys are affected by the loss of the mother. And to me, that wasn't necessarily so self-evident because it seemed like the one boy was more, affected by it. And then, so you've got the scene of sacrifice and this generational trauma, and then the healing through it, perhaps is, where this theme of sacrifice comes in. Can you speak more about, well, okay, what happens in the end? The boy, the snakes come, the boy runs off, and he sees the flowers on the grave. What are the metaphors there?
Yeah, part of the record is, and I find this with, at least for me, the idea of like being stuck in a cycle of someone with someone who you're taking the responsibility on yourself to help. Like that is both like a wonderful gift you can give someone, and a wonderful responsibility to have, but also really heavy. And I felt like in that same way, the record represented that. It's a physical, also like manifestation of a recording of his mother, a record, like magically his mother's coming through this record. That is beautiful, but it's also something that he's like, he has to do. He has to do it. So to me, the younger brother is so stuck on making sure he can have this information about his mother. Like that's so important to him. Like that's the bargain he makes with his other brother
Right.
is tell me about her and I will help you. So to me, in the smashing of the record, it's really smashing the that obligation, and knowing that like that the knowledge of your ancestry, the knowledge of like the love of a mother is so much better, so much deeper than whatever toil you go through to try and hold on to that connection. It appears to you in nature and magically throughout when you least expect it, and it will feel magical as it comes to you organically. So to me, that like him running away from all that pain and that horrible night of snakes and dealing with those demons, running out into the world, running to his mother's grave, finding these flowers that are singing to him feels like, okay, it's going to be okay. There's don't have to hold on to that so tightly.
Mm,
And
mm,
and yeah, you can find it organically in your world.
mm, mm. So that's great. Now it's coming to me. So you've got this kind of cyclical trauma that has been inherited, and also that's been inherited situationally, like there was a traumatic event, right? And oftentimes children inherit the sins of their parents, and
Mm.
the misfortunes in life, and take it on as their own and internalize it, and then sickness results. So you um have opened up a path, right, to freedom. There's a path there that one can take. And what is that path? What decision does the character make to choose the path to freedom, to move beyond into the present, the future?
Yeah. Well, to me, that like the big decision for the character, which like I went back and forth with subtitles for this movie. I thought about not subtitling it at all, and there's Spanish in here, and I don't speak Spanish fluently, so even for me, that was like a decision. There's also we were so lucky to cast an actress who is also Yaqui and was kind enough to help translate some of the dialogue into the Yaqui native language. So to me, the turning point is in this film, as the snakes are coming to get his brother, coming to get him, his mother speaks to him in Spanish and in her Yaqui language, and is telling him to let go. And I didn't subtitle it. I didn't because I wanted it to be authentically that experience of like you don't know what someone's saying, but you can understand that they're trying to reach you.
Mm,
And that idea of like just like letting it go, like listening to those words, focusing on a self-sacrifice of if even if it's smashing something you love, like the sound of his mother's voice, like letting all of that go to open yourself up to something even bigger. um and I think that is also like part of healing, can also, even if it's something you absolutely love and treasure, um it's sometimes letting go is like the best way to move forward and expand your world. So I think that's what that was for me, at least.
hmm. Yeah, that's cool. That's great. Thanks for that, Kristi.
Yeah.
How have you been changed since making this movie?
Oh gosh, like this whole experience, because it was, through this fellowship and Netflix and Lalif, um, like that in particular, like the way that they have supported me in making this movie and making it possible. Like I said, I mean, it truly is. I mean, I know every film is a passion project, but it really is. Like my grandfather has since passed on. So like making this film and like helping to like avoid this generational trauma by like helping his story pass on to the next generation is like in itself healing. Also, like I get to pass on a story from him so that the next generation doesn't have that loss of knowledge that he had. So that to me is just like the most like full circle meta of it all. Is in the making of this film I get to help heal some of our generational trauma too. So the best gift. It was amazing. So
So
yeah.
you feel like you've been healed, and I guess I would just kind of pry you,
Yeah.
to say, well, like, how have you been changed? In what way has, now that the film is done and you've,
Yeah.
it's all behind you in a way, and I know you've got some other stuff up ahead, but in terms of what you want this film to do, but the making of it is done, it's edited, you put it out there
Yeah.
as a creative work. How has the creative process and the creative work changed you as a person?
I mean, it's truly like every time you make something, it just like, I think it is just reaffirming the fact that you can do this. Like absolutely can do this. And with like the help of friends, with the help of partners, and just like believing in yourself, like, filmmaking is really hard, as we all know. So like just having done the thing, know that you can do it and you can do it again. And it was hard and it was like it was magical and it was all the things, but like yeah, to know that you can do it is like the best gift.
It's
So
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. Confidence
Yep.
reinforces you. Yeah,
Oh
absolutely.
yeah.
Kristi, well done. Kristi Uribes, writer director, Play It Forward. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. All right, everybody, till next time.